Flint, it's an absolute honor to have you on my show today, man. You made my childhood amazing. You made many people's, millions of people's childhood absolutely incredible. G.I. Joe, Transformers, we're going to unpack that in a moment, but I just want to ask you, brother, how you doing, man?
Just great. We're sitting here on a Wednesday afternoon, but we're here now. So
We're here now, so let's unpack this bad boy. Okay, let's get right into it. Like I was saying, you're responsible for like some of my fondest childhood memories, and also obviously the death of Optimus Prime was probably not my favorite childhood memory, but it needed to happen. I went actually to see the movie in the theaters last night for probably like the 100th time that I've watched this film. It was necessary and needed to happen, but I just want to talk to you about your start, your rise into entertainment. Like what got you into wanting to write and be such a great film creator?
well, I mean, it was I got out of college, undergraduate college, and had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So I was kind of sitting around my parents' house. They had a place in Carmel, really cool place, and I had its guest house on a cliff, and was writing my first novel. And I, um, just didn't know what I wanted to do. And my father was saying, "Well, you probably will do something that doesn't exist now, so you've got to prepare for it, right?" And so I just did the mature thing and went to film school. So I went down to USC, did the master's degree in cinema, and then got out of that. And I had a couple spec scripts. I don't know what I thought I was going to be doing or what I was going to be writing, but in the end, I ended up, the first person that hired me, which kind of determines what you do, was Joe Ruby, who was half of a company called Ruby Spears. And Joe and his partner Ken Spears created Scooby Doo, and they got their own studio for it. And all of a sudden, I was writing Saturday morning and thinking, "Hey, this is really fun." And I'm good at it, and I just like doing it. So I kept going on that track for a while. I kind of swerved into games. It kind of exactly around that time I met Gary Gygax, but at that point you couldn't make a living, doing games. So I was doing animation and loved it.
And you're also a history buff. Did that like factor into like the GI Joe and Transformers at all?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely.
I
Yeah, and
figured
I
that.
mean, yeah, I was an ancient history major in college, so I mean, what do you expect? And I mean, you can see it just all over. I mean, when I was rewatching the Transformer movie. I mean, so much of it, I feel like I was ripping off the Aeneid and Iliad, it's like, and you're taking from stuff like that, that's nobody knows. But no, that's just fundamental. It's something that has served me incredibly well my entire career.
And so you came on the Transformers in season 2, I believe, right?
Yes. Yeah, I was first on. I had left Lucasfilm after a brutal experience in, like, I would say summer '84, and probably a month or two later, Steve Gerber asked me if I would help him story edit some episodes of GI Joe. And so, yeah, sure. And I started doing it. It was really fun, and they liked what I was doing. So they decided they wanted to hire me as a producer, I was a associate producer. That's what I was first. But I was a co-producer. I still don't know what any of those titles mean, but that's what
I was. With GI Joe, did you do the PSAs at the end, like knowing's half the battle?
I am quite sure I wrote PSAs. I remember being back in Manhattan doing some of them, but no, that was like the KP for writers. It's like, that was we do like voice that off on somebody. Nobody wanted to write the PSAs, even though we found them pretty entertaining. It's just like, no, you didn't want to spend your afternoon writing PSAs, and we had scripts to do.
Hey, at the end of the day, they probably saved some people's lives, man. No
They
one's
might have.
battle.
Yeah, that might have been one thing. Yeah, and like half of them probably do. So knowing it was a quarter of the battle, huh?
So before we go to the movie, I want to talk about, I'm going to jump ahead after the movie, or after the aftermath of the film, is that the Transformers season 3, the Five Faces of Darkness,
Right.
that 5-part, saga was so excellently done, man.
Oh, thanks. Thanks a lot.
So good because it picked up right where the movie left off, and it gave a different tone to the Transformers. Like, what was your approach to that? Like, it was very great storytelling.
Well, I mean, what happened was this: was that we knew after the movie, we knew we were going into season 3, and we knew that it had to come after the movie. It'd just be kind of weird if we dealt like the movie didn't happen. And the very nature of the toys had changed. They'd gone from being things that were, almost photorealistic to real objects on Earth. We had triple changers, and there's a much more sci-fi look to things. And I don't see anything that looks like Cyclonus or the Sweeps running around on Earth. So we kind of knew we'd go back to Earth, but we knew we were in space. And so then it was all sorts of things like, oh, what happens when they run into aliens and they run into monsters, and let's have them fight a dragon, and these guys live in space anyway. And what do they do after this war? I mean, they've just defeated Unicron. And that's why the first image had to be, it's my favorite image from all the Transformers, is Unicron's head floating in space. But, the first image of the Five Faces of Darkness is the last image of the movie. Mm-hmm. And, so we were showing, okay, we're clearly in that continuity, and, we're clearly in that time period. And I'm glad you liked it. I mean, obviously season 3 was extremely controversial for a whole host of reasons. Yeah, because it was challenged. I mean, I love the fact that we both saw a 35th anniversary re-release of the movie, because remember, the movie did not do well at the time. It was not perceived as a hit. As a matter of fact, it was perceived as a fail. And people at Hasbro were actively upset by the fact that that we had killed Optimus Prime, as if we just went off and did it. I mean, they knew it. I mean, there was, there's all sorts of politics going on, all sorts of things changing in the world. And there's a story that this gets to Five Faces of Darkness, because I wrote a lot of Five Faces of Darkness before the movie came out, but it overlapped, and certainly it wasn't final until after the movie come out. So we were reacting to the movie. And the story was that some kid had locked himself in a room for a week, and everybody believed this story. Okay, first of all, I don't know if he survived locking himself into a bathroom for a week. And second of all, having now been a parent, at that point I was, more than a decade away from being a parent. How long is any kid going to lock themselves in a bathroom before you knock the door down? You take off the hinges and you get the kid out of there, but it's not a week. But we all believed that story, and and it kind of went through, and everybody was upset, and we had to remedy this situation we'd created.
Yeah, it was wild.
Even though we didn't feel we had created it.
It was wild. Like when I saw that movie, I was 7 years old. I'm now 42. And watching it last night in cinema was absolutely amazing. 35 years, after the release, it was just a wonderful experience. And I was digesting and processing a lot of stuff. And a lot of fans might say, hey, this was to sell toys that killed off Ironhide and Optimus Prime and all that. And I'm like, no, man, like this is actually great storytelling. It was so nice to see the Autobots so vulnerable and on the run, and Galvatron, coming out there. Leonard Nimoy, dude, first of all, the voice actors, Judd Nelson,
was unbelievable.
They're unbelievable. Leonard Nimoy, Orson Welles. And where I was at cinema last night, the sound was so big. Orson Welles sounded so incredible. And Frank Welker. I mean, the list goes on and on. Robert Stack, Peter Cullen, of course, the voice of Optimus Prime, Casey Kasem, Scatman Crothers. I mean, it just goes on and on. And what I love about that film too is the music.
Yes.
The music of that film, Vince DiCola.
That was just quintessential 80s. Vince DiCola is extraordinarily, talented. And so Stan Bush, and so is everybody else that was involved in it. I'm not just saying that to be a nice guy. The fact is, you listen to that soundtrack, and what I was really struck by is just how 80s it was. I mean, it just encapsulated, everything I liked about 80s music. It was like, prog rock, mixed with kind of, I guess we could call it early metal, or maybe just metal. and the power, the touch is basically a power ballad, right? And it
Absolutely.
was yet somehow kind of, it wasn't all nasty and all that, and then you have Weird Al doing a song in there. I mean, I thought it was just great. That was what really. I mean, you're right. There's the new print that they've got. It looked better than I've ever seen it. It was probably a new print, new projector. They, somewhere over COVID, they completely sploofed the theater. It was a freshness and a vividness I've never quite seen it with that before.
It was so big and so epic. Like to watch it last
Mm-hmm.
night, like it took me back to my childhood. So it played with my emotions like big time. And I know what's going on. What I really liked about watching the film is that there was people that was introduced to this version of the Transformers that had never been there before. Like there was kids in the audience, and the parents obviously knew because we're in our 40s and 50s and whatnot in the
Yeah.
theater. And so the kids started to pick up on the fact that, like, oh, wait a minute, is Optimus Prime going to die here? But I tell you, they got very emotional. And I was like, I feel your pain, kiddo. I feel your pain. Like I was there. I watched it with my father in 1986 at premiere. And I was just like so defeated. Even my dad, he was like, wow, they whacked Optimus Prime. We're Italians. So he's like, they whacked Optimus Prime. And I'm going to go there. I have a theory and scenario about like how brilliant the Transformers is and how it connects to the Sopranos. But, here's what's up is that it's just such an emotional movie. And Optimus Prime, that run when he's like, Megatron must be stopped no matter the cost. Dude, he takes down the entire Decepticon army in like what, 30 seconds? Autobots
Right.
can do in 2 days.
Yeah. No, it was really something, yeah. I mean, it was just, I'd forgotten how, also just kind of how beautiful it was.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I had a friend who was a complete non-combatant, who's a guy I've done a lot of work with, and it's a voice actor, and he showed up, and I said, "You ever seen any Transformer stuff before?" And I said, he said no, and I said, "Well, this won't make any sense to you," because what was weird about the movie is it really was made for fans. I mean, it wasn't like we're going to reintroduce what Transformers are. I mean, it just started off as if you'd watched every episode of the first two seasons and had all the toys. He came out and he said, "This was like a big acid trip, like a mathematical acid trip. That's what this was like." That's what he came out and said. And it's like, and what he was reacting to was it's normal to us, but the music was just said, underneath it, Vince DiCola is a prog rock artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the colors. I mean, what Nelson did. I mean, especially like when you're inside of Unicron. It was just like incredible. I mean, that would be in an art museum if it weren't sitting in a children's movie, which that wasn't really a children's movie.
No.
I mean, and that was the other thing. And by season 3, it's not really a kid's show anymore.
Oh.
I mean, it kind of like, we figured we had 65, episodes in season 1. We had 65 in season 2, and you could see everything starting to evolve in season 2 as we were working on the movie. And so we started writing things to set up the movie. Of course, we didn't have a final draft of the movie most of the time we were writing season 2, but the second half of season 2. But nevertheless, it was morphing into something different, which I think is really good.
I agree.
Because it's not like the first 65 episodes are going to go away. We'll have those forever.
Season 3, you could definitely tell like it was more catered to adult. But I think that after Transformers, the movie, 86, of course, the original Transformers, the movie, is that it was so adult themed. Like, I mean, sitting there in a cinema when you're a kid and seeing like all your childhood heroes, like Ironhide, Ratchet, all these people, Wheeljack, like that was a tough one. Like, because you didn't even get to see how he got done in. It's like you just
no. I mean that, and the guy I was sitting next to, who now does conventions, does robot conventions. I was sitting next to him in the theater. The moment when Megatron just wastes Ironhide, right?
Oh,
That was the moment I knew this film was something different. I mean, I
Such
knew this
heroic
was going
nonsense.
somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, boom, gone. And it was like, that movie, that was the moment it made a stand. This was not going to be, a big caper film and nobody gets shot, nobody gets hurt, and everybody ends up
No.
laughing later on. We really kicked some Deceptive butt. That stuff was in there, but it was really this took it to a whole different level because realistically nobody had done that I know of a movie of something that was already on TV. Like Buck Rogers, took the pilot and released it as a movie.
And that was your
before it went on.
grandfather that did
That was
that,
my
right?
grandfather.
Yep.
But so they did that, but nobody. This is like between seasons 2 and season 3 of an ongoing series, and they made a movie out of it, and that was kind of unknown territory. And kids animation, would spark back and revive with the Disney run of like Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and all that. But it wasn't that evident at that moment that was going to happen. Nobody knew what was going to happen. What the result of the movie was, and what it never occurred to me that I'd be sitting there 35 years later talking about it.
It's
None of us thought
unbelievable. Unbelievable. Like I told my wife last night, I was like, the fact that I'm here, this is happening right now. I'm watching Transformers, the movie, the original movie in theaters. And the thing about it is that it starts off at such a frantic pace. And it took me back and seeing it on a big screen and with the big sound and everything like that.
Yeah, the sound, they really did.
Oh my God, the sound was awesome.
Or remixed it or what? Yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, there are a couple places where the new mix seemed to step on lines, but I didn't even care because I knew what the lines were. Not like anybody else in the theater who, I was doing a con and the projector, the sound went out. And like the audience knew all the lines. They just said the lines. We didn't even need the soundtrack. I mean, it sounded better with the soundtrack, but it's pretty amazing.
It's so funny that you said that. Like normally I'd be pissed off at this sort of thing at a movie theater. There was a woman sitting next to me with her husband, and she was reciting like every line. Like,
Yep.
When Megatron, is that you? Here's a hint. Like, I was like, but I was like, high five, girl. Yes. That's one of the best parts of the movie. Like, how badass was Galvatron when he comes in?
Yeah.
I did everything about that movie. Like I was telling my wife last night, when I saw it, I was like, and anyone that would listen, is that watching it as an adult, it's got a different theme to it. As a kid, some people might have been pissed off about Optimus Prime dying, but this is really the adventure, in my opinion, of some younger people like Hot Rod and all the people out there. Dinobots stole the show too, even though they're not young.
They were great.
They were
great. And the way they played off a cup was incredible. Well, at the screening I went to, we had Greg Berger was there, John Machida was there. I am trying to think. I don't want to forget anybody, but like we had a bunch of the voice actors were there because we just did. When you saw it, did you see some stop motion shorts in front of it?
No. When I saw it last night?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, you got it. Did you get there early enough that because they released, like for our release, when I saw it on Sunday, we made 3 just in the last 3-4 months. We made 3 stop motion shorts featuring the new line of toys that are photorealistic with the movie, the 86 movie. And the toys look exactly like in the 86 movie. It started when we kickstarted Unicron, which I just helped them do it. I mean, the guys at Hasbro are great. Ben Montano is the best toy executive in the world as far as I'm concerned. And he's like the vintage guys when I was there in the beginning. I mean, they're just out there having fun. But anyway, he said, let's do some stop motion because you want to really have them transform and we have the actual toys. So we treated it like the movie, like all of them had acted out the movie and then they decided to animate it. And so it's like blooper reels of you have to see it, but I mean they'll be released.
I can't wait
one
to
way
see
or another
it.
soon. Yeah, the audience, I mean, I was really proud of them, but my point was we got Stan Bush came in, he does a great guest appearance. I'm not going to tell you what he does. John Machida was there. Greg Berger was there. A couple new guys were there. And, it was, it was just great.
What about at Boogie Nights when they used "We Got the Touch"? I mean, I think that was so funny.
Yeah, no, because that's almost that generation. You know what I mean? And I mean, yeah, you realize that movie was just perfect 80s.
Oh
And
God,
that
yeah.
Boogie Nights is the dark side of that exact same period.
Oh, it was so great, man. And
Or let's say
Transformers
the
and everything
adult
that you've
side.
been doing is so great. I know you do video games. You're,
Yep.
you're a video gamer. My favorite video game of all time is Grand Theft Auto 5. I
Yep.
I play that thing. Also Red Dead Redemption. Obviously, I'm a
Yeah.
Rockstar gamer.
Yes, you are. You are an open world Rockstar gamer.
Yeah, I tell you what, my wife, she kills Zelda. Like she did, like, what was it, Breath of the Wild, and she got 100% completion on this game. That game is hard.
Yeah, and long.
Very long. So tell me about some of the games that you're into, or the ones that you created, man.
Well, if I go backwards, I'm working on a project with a company called Deviation right now. And if you just look up Deviation, I mean, it's the guys that did Black Ops and Zombies and a bunch of other things. And they were kind of retired and all that, and decided, all right, we're getting back in, and we want to do Game of the Year. That's what we're doing. And they're great. We have not announced the game, but you can look up the company. This is like, it's like, being asked to play for, Crosby, Stills and Nash or something. It's just being a super group. It's like get a call from the Buccaneers. Hey, we need a running back again there.
No, dude, I feel you. And speaking of,
it's a great team.
Speaking of sports, what kind of sports are you into?
Really, football is the only thing I follow to any great extent. I mean, I've sort of, have a passing knowledge of everything else, but that's just, I don't know, I'm a big guy, and so I like football. I don't know, for whatever reason.
What about music? I'm sure that obviously you're into 80s prog and stuff of that nature.
Well, I was in the 70s prog before there was 80s prog. Remember, I'm old. And I started out, it was prog, and I listened to, I mean, I would say the absolute core of my, music is the obvious. It's the Beatles, the Who, the Stones, the, Eric Clapton doing just about anything. So, it starts with that. But in this other weird part of my life, I discovered prog and, oddly enough, metal. We had a disc jockey, a friend of mine had a disc jockey living across the street from him. And his wife would sell these, these sample, just like albums that they would send to the radio station that they never played. I picked up this one. It's called Black Sabbath. Huh? I wonder what this is. And I put it on, and I'm telling you, hear the first three chords. This is, these guys are onto something. And I picked up a lot of stuff that that way. So, but yeah, I'd say that, and just, and now in my dotage, I mean, obviously I listen to a lot of other things, but, I would say, yeah, just any kind of, probably it starts from classic rock and works out. And then, the thing about prog's really classical, right? I mean, it's one kind of, rock and roll music that has no reference to the blues or anything else. It's all the guys that were playing keyboards and, in school orchestra or playing violin or something, they did when they went out and made music, and it just comes from a different set of roots.
Vince DiCola, like, he's big into that, and I can't wait to pick his brain on it. Rocky IV soundtrack is my go-to gym anthem. I am a drummer and also a boxer, and I love all of it. His material. Transformer soundtrack was amazing for the movie. Like, Dare, all that.
Oh no,
so good.
And we have on the new video, there's some unreleased stuff, Vince DiCola stuff you've never heard before, that was done in the day. So you'll hear that in the background. We're trying to get him to release it and find some fun way to do it, because he came to Comic-Con a couple of years ago and did a concert. I mean, with his whole band. And these guys, I mean, no, and he's doing his best stuff now. I mean, that's the interesting thing. And Stan was there, was at our recording session. As I said, he makes a guest appearance. And I even wrote a song for one of those videos, but you have to listen really hard. But it's called the Discontinued Transformer Blues, you know, and so you'll hear it.
I
You'll just
gotta
hear it
check that. I
playing
want to
very
hear
subtly.
all this.
It's in one of our stop motion things. Yeah, that was my one and only recording I ever did. So, all right, drums. Okay, so are you? I mean, drums. I get it. Drums and boxing fit together.
Yeah. Yeah. My favorite bands of all time. I'm going to say Rush, Led Zeppelin, Tool, Chevelle. I like a lot of 80s, Boston, Scorpions. I like a lot of
Yep.
prog rock. I also like a lot of hip hop, jazz. You know, I mess around with Art Blakey, is one of my favorite jazz musicians
Yep.
of all time. I like the blues. I pretty much like everything. It's funny that you asked me that question. My wife is into country, and I was never into country, but it's all about paying your bills, getting laid, and getting paid. You know,
Yep.
the lyrics. And I'm like, this isn't that bad. So I started getting into that too, man.
You know what happened to me is, you know, because I put together a playlist every year of just songs that strike me for one reason or another. I just put them on the list so that I can listen to that playlist and it'll bring back 2021. And what I've
Yep.
discovered over the past few years is a shocking amount of country in my yearly playlist. You know, a part of it is it comes off like soundtracks for TV shows. Like I was watching Yellowstone, and you get stuff in there like, you know, Uncle Lucius, you know, doing you Keep the Wolves Away. I mean, just like brilliant stuff. And you
Yes.
know, so I'll just Shazam it off the TV. And then before that, I was watching Longmire. That had a lot of stuff too. And I noticed all this country's creeping into my list, and I like it. You know, I never, you know, but now bear in mind, country has morphed. You know, I mean, you know, first the rock guys were ripping them off forever. And Keith Richards in his books talking about how much they loved, you know, country music. I mean, like country Western stuff. And you actually listen to the Rolling Stones, and a shocking amount of it is country and Western. You know, like you listen to not the version of Honky Tonk Woman we all know, but Country Honk. And it's a country song. It's the same song. You know, it's just like they went and redid it, Dead Flowers, Wild Horses. I mean, and you realize just how influential that stuff was.
Oh, there's no doubt. And as a appreciator of music, great music, like you're always listening, and you got to keep an open mind. So, like anyone that's listening, like always be open minded to great music. Like there's something to offer from every outlet of music, like whether it's
Yep.
jazz, blues, funk, hip hop, punk, rock and roll, metal. Like I'm a big metal guy. But you were mentioning TV shows. We got a marathon going on HBO right now for The Sopranos, and I'm going to bookend
Right.
it with this about how it relates to the Transformers in a moment.
Good
Yeah,
luck
I'm
with
telling
that.
you, I saw some stuff. I saw things. So here's what's going on. Many Saints of Sopranos. I'm not getting paid for this, people. Obviously, comes out in theaters on Friday and also HBO Max. But if they want to pay me, go ahead. Donations are welcome. Sponsorship is also welcome.
Okay.
But what are some of the shows that you watch? I'm a big Cobra Kai guy. You know, are you watching
Oh,
anything right
Cobra
now?
Kai was great. Okay,
Oh,
you know, I mean
fantastic.
that, you know, yes, I mean because you know I live in Los Angeles, right? You know, and that's all the Valley, and they do a take on the Valley. It's one of the best things I've ever seen. The show is so politically offensive, and yet they get away with it. You know, I mean, imagine, you know, and when he's playing the names he's calling the, you know, that poor guy that, you know, with, you know, disabilities, you know, and, but he's one of the, both of them. I mean, you know, both the characters are just two of the freshest characters to show up on TV. And they're from a movie that's 30 years old. But somehow, whatever they did, I love Cobra Kai. Bosch, you want to listen to some interesting jazz because that's where Art Blakey showed up on my playlist. Was if you would listen to Bosch, that's all he listens to. I mean, it's your pure LA, you know, noir, you know, done, you know, present day. And yeah, jazz is very much, you know, in the front of it. So that's been great. Yellowstone, I love that one. And you know, and then we were watching a bunch of crap. You know how you go through the slow periods and like everything you
Oh
watch
yeah.
sucks, and it's this bad, depressing stuff that you get 3 episodes in and think, hey, I don't even want this in my head. So a friend of mine, actually one of the guys I'm working with, said, "Have you ever watched Band of Brothers?" And I realized incredibly I hadn't watched Band of Brothers. That's one of the best. You ever seen that? It's Steven Spielberg
Oh
and
yeah.
Tom Hanks. It's
That's
probably
very
20 years
excellent.
ago.
Excellent. Yeah,
So
it was
we
a long
just
time
got
ago.
done watching that. And then I decided, okay, we're not going to watch any crap for a while. So now we're watching The Crown, which is just also just brilliant, you know. And I mean, you know, I mean, sometimes you like crap, but I mean, you know, I just said, you know, I had too much crap and nothing good, you know. So that was it. And there are other shows I'm trying to. Oh, you want to see? Okay, you want to see interesting, you know, something. I would argue it's metal. You can watch it yourself. It's a show called Britannia. Yeah, it's Romans versus Druids, and this it's true. And the soundtrack, the theme song is Hurdy Gurdy Man, you know, at the beginning of it. So it's a period piece set, you know, 100 AD with Hurdy Gurdy Man playing. And that's relevant to you because that is the first time Jimmy Page and John Bonham ever played together. Is Donovan got them together and said, "Hey, you guys gotta, you know, you guys got to do that." And you listen to Hurdy Gurdy Man through those years, and you hear it. It's Zeppelin, you know, it's a different version of Zeppelin that had, you know, Donovan as the lead man and not, you know, Robert
Robert
Plant.
Plant.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta check that. That sounds amazing, dude. I gotta check that out for sure. All right, so my comparison, so
That
Sopranos
comes
and
out of the wall.
Transformers, there is a comparison here.
Yeah,
And
let's hear it.
I was watching the film last night, saying to myself, Megatron is obviously Tony Soprano, right? Starscream is Christopher.
Yep.
Yep, 100%. You
Yep.
know, Soundwave is Silvio.
Right.
And I had to figure out like who's Paulie Walnuts? Who is Paulie Walnuts? And I'm like, Shockwave. Because
I see. Okay. Yeah.
all right,
Yeah,
because he's always keeping things on point. Like he's always keeping things like very, you know, because Paulie Walnuts and Sopranos is very neat. Shockwave's always telling Megatron what's going on. Like, I mean, Soundwave is really good, but he's like the Silvio, you know,
Right.
where he's kind of like always updating him about what you should do type of thing, you know.
Well, that's how we always wrote him. You know, it's like, you know,
Yeah,
obviously Starscream's the most treacherous guy. He's also my favorite Transformer, by the way.
I was
But
going
the
to ask
most
you that.
treacherous guy. You know,
Who was your favorite one to write for? Was it Starscream?
oh yeah, because I mean, I was doing it for Chris Latta, right? And he was what made our
Great
shows different.
actor.
Oh, I mean, he lived just out of the edge of human possibility. I mean, you know, I mean, any one of those other guys, you know, I mean, Greg or, you know, Frank Welker or, you know, any of those guys are much more, you know, like seasoned real voice actors. But Latta had a frenetic energy, and he had a character and a voice that I think really defined our shows. I mean, all the way through, from G.I. Joe when he's Cobra Commander to all the way to Inhumanoids when he's Decompose and Visionaries. You know, I mean, yeah, and you know, so he, yeah, but I mean, Starscream also, I just love writing those characters because, you know, I mean, bad guys are just always, you know, a lot more fun to write than good guys because, you know, they're bad guys, right?
Yeah,
That's why you're talking about the Sopranos, right? I'm not hearing a bunch of police guys who are the Autobots, but I'll tell you who the Autobots were. Is the Autobots were the Chicago '85 Bears, because that was the season they went to the Super Bowl. And when I was watching the movie, I was remembering who was who. Okay, I'm remembering, you know, Hot Rod was Jim McMahon. I remember that, you know, and you had to make Blur Willie Gault because, you know, he was an Olympic speedster. Anyway, you don't want to hear about the '85 Bears, but the point is Cup was Mike Ditka. The point is, I just modeled them because I was so into it. And then the bad guys were guys on other teams I didn't like, you know, like, you know, yeah, obviously Megatron's Lawrence Taylor and you know, so yeah, so that was
isn't it funny how we do this? For Optimus Prime, if I got to think about any character in film, maybe like Clint Eastwood, like Western, you know, because it's
John Wayne.
John Wayne, that's right.
Originally,
yep,
he was the model for Optimus. And that's when, you know, do you know my book? I wrote a book called The Games Master about all this. When we were doing the death scene, that the book starts with this. Okay. Steve Gerber was this story editor on G.I. Joe, but he was helping me with, you know, the Optimus, not the death scene itself, but the fight scene before the death, right? All the way through the death. And he brings his buddy in. His buddy's this comic book guy from New York who's doing, you know, it looks like John Lennon or something, you know, who's doing a Batman comic book. And so he's trying to figure out how to have Batman fight Superman. And I'm trying to figure out how to kill Optimus Prime. And, you know, of course, his comic, it was The Dark Knight, right? It's Frank Miller. And I mean, it's one of those moments that popular culture just grew out of that. I mean, think of that, how all that rippled down for the last 35 years. But what Frank said that was really interesting is I was saying, I want Optimus's death to be like when I was a kid, what devastated me the same way. I was 5 years old because I saw it in the theaters, right? And when I was a kid, you didn't have VHSs and stuff like that. So you had to see it when it was out. Or you'd wait, several years to see it on TV, but the sun was out. So I had to be a 5 or 6, I can't remember. But point is that I never forgot. I mean, like a decade later, I actually saw the Alamo again. I remember Davy Crockett's death, shot by shot. It was closest thing to Optimus dying for your generation, right? And that's what I was trying to emulate. And Frank was saying, "You ever see the 300 Spartans?" And I'd never had, and he said, "Well, that's you got to see that. That's how the death ought to happen." Because that was everybody has that movie when they're a kid, when they go in there and like the hero dies and they didn't know that happened in movies. And with me, it happened with the Alamo. With you, it happened with Transformers. And you never forget that, and you never let go of it, and it becomes really epic.
The dialogue between Megatron and Optimus Prime during that death scene, when Megatron's like, "Why would you want to throw away your life so recklessly?" And Optimus Prime says, "That's a question you should ask yourself, Megatron." And he's like, "No, I want to do it with my bare hands." Optimus Prime pretty much kicks his ass in this battle. You know, he pretty much has his way with him. Hot Rod comes in. Now, when I was a kid, Hot Rod pissed me off because I'm like, man, you're the reason why Optimus Prime's dead. Prime had him. He's like, you're someone that shows no mercy, but now you're pleading for it. I thought you were made of sterner stuff. So he wanted Megatron to bust a move, in my opinion, right?
Right.
So what happens?
Well, we were doing Dirty Harry. I know what you're thinking about.
Exactly.
You fire 6 shots or only 5.
Exactly. So it was like that standoff, that Western type thing.
Yeah.
And then Prime goes down. I love the fact that he didn't get sold out. He says never. And then I'm watching this movie last night again for like the 100th time. And so I'm watching it and I'm saying, this is a journey of great characters that are building arcs. Like Hot Rod has a character arc. Like it's beautiful. And I like that they're like so like they're the weaker, like they're being stalked the whole time. Like, they're just getting dogged out all the time. Galvatron's on that ass. He got to make sure he pleases Unicron to stay alive. And what I want to mention about season 3, now I'm thinking about Galvatron. I love that you guys made him completely, I have to use the word, fucking nuts.
Yeah. Well, we had to play him against Megatron because Megatron was actually pretty sane. I mean, he made sense, and all that. And we didn't have Starscream anymore to be nuts. So we brought him back, later on. But the point is, for a long time, we didn't have Starscream. And so we decided, hey, if you got, transmutated by some giant planet that reforms you into another being, you'd be kind of, and then you lost a war and, you had the Matrix in your hand, you lost, you'd be kind of whacked too. So the idea was you just make, him nuts. And Hot Rod had to blow it during the Optimus fight because he had to go into it feeling really unworthy. And what he realizes, the Matrix picked him. He did not think he was, worthy of it. Everybody, Ultra Magnus was the obvious guy.
Yeah, I mean, he had the similar look to Optimus Prime, and I had watched a couple episodes from the Japanese version where you get to see Ultra Magnus actually introduced, because I'm a diehard, before the movie. But great character, Robert Stack, all the voice actors, Judd Nelson.
Robert Stack was the big deal of all the actors to meet. I mean, different ones were cool. I mean, to meet like an actual guy from Monty Python,
Oh my God! Yes,
I'd met Orson Welles before, so that wasn't the first time I met him. But, I mean, no, these guys. Judd Nelson was a lot of fun. He's a big Miami Dolphins fan, and it was great. But Robert Stack, like when I was a kid, you talk about The Sopranos. And my mother let me, stay up late. I'd been particularly good, or I'd done all my chores or whatever I'd done. So I could stay up to 10 o'clock. She let me watch The Untouchables. which is to this day a really scary show. And I would argue they made a movie with Kevin Costner movie, The Untouchables, but Robert Stack was Elliot Ness. And I mean, he was of all the guys, wow, this Robert Stack. And he was the most like, I've never done voiceover before. I mean, and he was great. He was incredibly humble and modest. And I mean, he's not like most actors. His family owned Occidental Petroleum, so I mean, it's not like he was on welfare or something, or he really needed the check. But he was great. I was thrilled to see Robert Stack, and he ended up having a big voice over career and Unsolved Mysteries later on, because he sounded great in that movie. It made everything sound so
amazing,
like weirdly Victorian and creepy at the same time.
What about like an Airplane? He was so good.
And then he turns into a comedy guy, but that was a genius of Airplane. I mean, Leslie Nielsen spent his whole career doing these straight man roles. So did what's his name, Lloyd Bridges. They were all serious. Robert Stack. They were guys you knew did serious stuff. So then when you're seeing him be these goofballs, it just makes it funnier.
Absolutely. In Airplane, when you see the guy come up to pick up, Robert Stack to drive him to the airport and get things going as the commander or whatever. Like that might be one of the most funniest scenes I've ever seen in movie history. Like when they take that turn and all the horses are gone behind them and stuff. It's just like so crazy. It's like that movie is just absolutely ridiculous. I actually played that for my 12-year-old stepdaughter just recently, and she was dying of laughter. I'm like, these are the movies that stand up. These are the movies that stand the test of time. Last night I saw people watching Transformers, and they were all in. Like, like I said, the older people like myself giving high fives, but like the kids, like I heard them asking their parents questions, like what's going on? What I do love about everything that the Transformers is very, advanced. It's not a kid's show. I totally agree with it.
No,
like it's
not by season 3.
No,
and not the movie. Certainly not a children's.
No. Like you're gonna grow up real fast if you watch that.
Oh, you were asking about. I can come back and we can talk. We can talk more again. But you're asking about Five Faces of Darkness, and my fantasy is eventually what I want to do. Five Faces of Darkness was beset with a lot of problems, not the least of which was, after a lot of things were going on, but we had a new animation company. And we got whole scenes we didn't get back, shots we didn't get back, and it was just not well animated. So I want to take that, edit it, make it the way it should be, and release it like a second part of the Transformers movie, which I think the world would be open for. You get all the shots right, you do all the in-betweening right, you do the deal, you get Stan and Vince to come back and do the soundtrack again. I mean, you do today's version of that soundtrack. And I think it would be a huge companion piece. And you don't even have to do anything new. You just go fix what's there. You relight or re-edit. I'd love to get Nelson back to do it because he's still doing stuff.
Nelson was great. And
unbelievable.
One of my favorite episodes is the Ghost of Starscream. I thought that was so badass.
I told you I had to get Starscream back in the thing. And the only way I could do it at that point was make him a ghost. So we got him back.
Oh, it was so cool. And my wife, like now she's getting into it because I have like this ability to like, put things on her, like where it's like, hey, want to watch this boxing match or this UFC fight tonight or like whatever I'm into. And hey, Star Wars and like all this because I'm into my stuff. And when I get in, I get really in. And she asked me, she's like, when I showed her the Death of Starscream, she was like, does he come back? Like he's a big character. I'm like, I'll spoil it for you if you want. He comes back and he has, things to do with Unicron and Starscream want to get revenge on Galvatron. Right. I thought that was a brilliant episode. It was so good.
Well, that's what we wanted to do. I mean, because if anybody'd side with Unicron, it would be Starscream. Because I always thought that Unicron picked the wrong guy. Starscream would have been all in.
The best thing is again, like
that would be fun.
My favorite scene of I think Transformers. Well, I have two Transformers movie after watching it last night is when Prime comes out and just takes on the whole Decepticon army, fights Megatron. I mean, how do you deny that? But when Galvatron
Yes.
shows up on Starscream, and
yes,
oh, that is the coolest thing. Like there is
yeah,
no
absolutely,
F's given.
absolutely. Sorry.
So I got one more episode for you. Rude Awakening, where
Yeah, well,
Optimus
Dark
Prime
Awakening.
dies again.
Well, okay. So here's the gag with that. The worst possible lowest moment of Transformers. After the movie bombed and Hasbro's mad anyway. Kid locks himself in the bathroom, which I just don't believe that happened. But anyway, everybody did that, so it doesn't matter whether it happened or not. Steve Gerber and I'd figure out, yeah, we're gonna bring Optimus back, like from the undead, because we have guys like, you want to read something amazing, take a look at Marv Wolfman's horror work when he was doing horror comics. I mean, this is a guy, who's like, there's nothing Marv Wolfman hasn't written. I mean, he was like, child editor of DC Comics. I mean, yeah, just an extraordinary career. And he's still great. He's doing games. He wrote some of the best horror ever. So we're sitting around, yeah, let's bring Optimus back and we'll make him a zombie and then we'll kill him again, And this was before we were in trouble. And so that thing's like cruising, because we wanted season 3 to be a lot darker and to really sort of deal with all the issues of, we'd never done a Transformers ghost story before. We'd never done a Transformers zombie story. Let's set a whole thing in like wherever the Transformer mausoleum is, let's go there, and let's have them fight dragons and, and go to all these sleazy planets and, just because we could, and we sort of, everybody knew that era was coming to an end. The toy show, there's a lot of legend, there were a lot of things anyway. So we have that well down the way in production, and we get this thing, you must bring Prime back. That was a terrible mistake. We hadn't scolded, right? And they got Marv to write The Return of Optimus Prime, because at that point I was already on, I think I was writing what would grow up to be Tiny Toons at that point. But anyway, and Marv did that stuff really well. And so this thing's in the pipeline, and we don't really have the heart to tell Hasbro that, oh yeah, we got this thing where we kill him again on there, because because it's one of those moral, practical decisions where if you tell them, they're just gonna get mad and they'll do something precipitous and it could all go bad. If you don't tell them, you're gonna get in trouble. We all figured, okay, by the time they find out, we'll be doing something else anyway.
You all played with our emotions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it's just at that point we knew the characters so well, and we were working on them so much, and we were kind of having fun with it. And there was this irreverent sense, because I mean, I have two opposite feelings about all the carnage in the movie. One is I feel bad about it in the sense that we sort of had a deal with kids that nothing bad would happen. You watch Transformers, you're in a real life safe space, but that was TV, not movies. But but the other is, we wouldn't be talking about this if we had done it. You know what I mean? That it would have been kind of as forgotten as all those other shows. When was the last time you had a conversation on Mask or all the other stuff that was up against, or GoButs? I mean, you had see a lot of GoBut fan action. I'm sure there is, but
what I think was that it was a bold move watching that film last night for Transformers the movie. It was very bold and ambitious and different. Most people wouldn't, kill off the main character that someone had loved for a long time. But I also like the desperation, again, going back to the Autobots, like they're on the run. And then we have this new guy, Galvatron, who's galvanized, like going out there, it was like he made a deal with the devil, Megatron did, and he got reborn and baptized and became Galvatron. And like we saw the first look of him when he comes out and blasts out Starscream, like how powerful this man is. Like, whoa, like he could do that. Like that's in Starscream is a decorated officer. So I think
the death was so good, where all the the bolts went around him, and he steps on the crown.
He crumbles to ashes.
Yeah,
and he gets the crown and steps on it.
It goes falling down the steps. Yeah,
Rumble's like,
I ripped that off from Roman history. Where Galva got killed, and they dumped his head down the Capitoline steps. That was stolen from ancient history.
I love when Rumble says, "What did he say his name was?" He's like
Yeah,
Galvatron.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well,
Leonard
and those
Nimoy's voice was so amazing.
the little characters were just so funny in there. I mean, yeah, just the guys. Just in that's what's fun is you'd have these intense moments and you balance it off with something funny. But wait, I live. Want a bet? Just talks about
Exactly.
the
Starscream, that's just crazy. Starscream was looking for that opportunity. He did it all throughout the entire saga.
Yep.
And that's why he knew. He's like, Megatron, is that you? Because he was pissing his pants if he had them. He knew what was going on. And that's my favorite line in the film. Here's a hint. He just takes him out.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just so good. He does not hesitate. He rolls on the set hard, man. But I tell you what, man, like Transformers, obviously, I think one of the greatest franchises of all time. Do you have any thoughts on the Netflix series that was recently released?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, what I've seen, I really like. I mean, unfortunately, I have to watch this stuff. My wife's not gonna watch Transformers with me, and I've watched it, so I have to like actually sit down and do it. But I mean, these are really talented guys. I mean, after DeSanto's working on it, and George Christic, and it's just great stuff. I'm doing a project with Don Murphy, who's producer on the movies, so yeah, I mean, because they're doing something obviously totally different than we were doing. And it's not something. I mean, if I were going to do Transformers again, and frankly, I loved writing these little stop motion shorts. They're just kind of these silly things you do for no reason. And I really, that was a really good moment, and I really loved writing the characters again. And then being in there with the voice actors and with Vince and Stan, and it was like yeah, wow, this is fun. It was really fun writing. But I mean, I definitely see it a lot more comedic and lighter than modern writers. Just different time.
I think there's a great story to be told with the origins of Megatron and Optimus Prime on Cybertron, like how Orion Pax turned into Optimus Prime, how Megatron was born.
Did you wait? Have you read Autocracy?
No,
it's a graphic novel series that Chris Metzen and I did with Livio Ramondelli.
Oh, please! I would love to read.
Oh that. Yeah, no, we did that in the. Let's see where. The Autocracy trilogy. Look, it's right here. I try to keep these things here. This Chris Metzen, Livio Ramondelli, and I did it. Okay, Chris Metzen is the guy who created Warcraft, StarCraft, Diablo. I mean, he's created lead at Blizzard, right? Diablo and later Overwatch, right? We're sitting there working on Diablo 3. And he said, hey, will you write a Transformers graphic novel with me? It's only 22 pages. 300 plus pages, and 2 years later we were done. It's just, I mean, he's a really brilliant guy, obviously, and it was a lot of fun. And Livio, just the artwork's fabulous. But it is an IDW continuity. You'll see little shots of G1 in there, but basically what it really is it's a story of the rise of well, not really the rise of Megatron, but who these guys were. Certainly the origin story when
Orion Pax.
Orion Pax. Sorry,
Alpha Trion.
Prime. Yeah, and all that stuff. Well, you're in there. They're cops basically in this thing, and things go. They're counter-terrorist troops or whatever you want to call them, and things start going bad. But it's good series.
I want to read that for sure, dude.
Yeah. No, it's all an IDW universe. So I mean, do not expect it to be like the movie.
I love the idea of seeing something like that, like Cybertron's a very interesting place, and Alpha Trion, amazing, Optimus Prime when he was Orion Pax, Elita 1.
It's all in there, and you meet all of the you meet Zeta Prime and Alpha, you meet all these guys in there. I mean, it's very much like an early origin story. And it's much kind of harder and higher acting and nasty fighting and protoform and stuff like that.
That would make for an amazing movie.
Yeah, I mean,
or a show.
There's so many things to do with this stuff. So I mean, that's what it was very much. That was stuff that didn't even exist when we were doing it. in my opinion, I still believe the Quintessence created the Transformers, and will not be, will not, leave that opinion. But that's just my opinion.
That's awesome. Flint, you and yours have a great evening tonight. I'm going to be posting everything to iHeart, Spotify, iTunes, all that kind of great stuff.
Great. Yeah, just send me a link when you have it.
This is a big honor. Like, you have no idea how much this meant to my childhood.
It's fun to do it. It's really fun to do it.
You're a great guy. Right. I appreciate you.
Oh yeah, and also too, as long as we're here, so there is a book called The Games Master where I tell all these old stories, right? And it's all about the 80s and doing Transformers and Joe and Dungeons and Dragons and all sorts of other
yeah,
stuff.
I did research on that too, my man. Yeah, I saw a little bit about that. Yeah. Hey,
all right,
you guys have a great night, bro. I appreciate you so much.
Okay, man. Good. Talk to you later on. All right,
much love, brother.